So now that we know about the deleterious effects stress can have on us, let's come up with some good ways to manage it. Think to yourself about stress management techniques. You already have some of these in your tool belt. Think of the times when you've been stressed and what you did to combat it. Think of things that have worked for you. You might have considered going for a run, listening to music, talking to a friend, or a number of things. Now ask yourself, with all the possibilities you thought of, will those work for everyone? Well, no, unfortunately not. Everyone has to figure out what works best for them. For example, running might be a stress reliever for an athletic person who enjoys running, but it might also be a source of stress for someone who is in poorer shape or who doesn't get any pleasure out of that activity. One technique does not fit all people or all situations. The good news is that we are going to review a model for stress management and some basic principles for stress reduction that you can incorporate into your everyday life and easily tailor to fit your personal needs. Over the next few slides, we're going to discuss a decision-making model for stress management. The key points of this model are remembered as AAABC. Let's see if we can break it down so that each part makes sense and is actually something we can accomplish. The end result we are looking for is a method you can use to determine how best to deal with a stressor. I'll give you a brief overview of the model and then we'll talk about each element in more detail. The first A stands for alter it. Sometimes you have to alter a situation so it becomes less stressful and more manageable. The second A stands for avoid it. There are some stressors in life that we can avoid and remove ourselves from. We can choose not to get involved in a situation that's volatile or stressful. Office gossip is an example that fits into this category. Or sometimes it can simply be learning to say no to a request that we don't have the time to accommodate. And finally, the third A stands for accept it. In some cases, we can neither alter nor avoid the stress. In this situation, we have to find a good way of accepting it. If we know that we need to face the stress, arming ourselves by B, building resilience, and C, changing our perception, will definitely help. Now let's dive a little deeper into each aspect of the stress management model. When we are looking at altering a stress, we're talking about removing the stress by changing something. The key to this choice is seeing as many factors as possible related to the stress that are in your control. If the stressor is a time-sensitive issue, like a task that has to be completed by a certain future but not immediate deadline, using the alter approach may be appropriate. Having to give a speech and properly preparing well for it can significantly reduce the amount of stress associated with the speech. You can alter this speech assignment or decrease your stress by thoroughly writing the speech, rehearsing it to yourself, and perhaps even practicing it in front of a friend or coworker for feedback. By taking these steps, you can feel less stress when it's time to deliver the speech because you're so well prepared. You can use this technique with any stressful situation. I have an example of when I worked with an employee who was totally overwhelmed with her job. She was going to school, trying to support her family, and was having a very difficult time. We discussed her current situation and we decided to reframe or alter the way she looked at her job. We agreed that for now, her job was a means to an end. She was working the job to keep a roof over the heads of her loved ones and food in their stomachs. The job was also assisting her in going to school and reaching her ultimate goal of getting a degree to make her eligible for a better job. Once we reviewed this and processed it a bit, the anxiety she was experiencing from her job was reduced. She had altered or reframed the way she was viewing her job. It was a way for her to find the silver lining in the situation, so to speak. In the example about the speech, it was not seeing the speech as so overwhelming, but breaking it down to manageable parts in order to best prepare for it that helped to reduce the anxiety. So the methods used to alter a stressor can include problem solving, direct communication, so altering the stressor by communicating your needs clearly or getting clarification from the person as to what their needs are that they are asking you to assist with. You can also better organize yourself and make use of planning and good time management skills. Another option is to avoid the stressor altogether. Sometimes we'd love to do that. If we could avoid a stressor, we don't get stressed, right? Well, we would hope so. In order to use this technique, you have to be willing to remove yourself from the stressful situation, or better yet, not get involved in the first place. The key point of avoiding a stress is knowing when to say no. Sometimes law enforcement personnel have a hard time with saying no for a variety of reasons, but you may need to do it for self-preservation purposes. Keep in mind that you can delegate the stress or the task to someone else, or you can choose to completely withdraw from the stressor or the situation. Knowing your limits is the key, and then you have to be willing to set those limits. Situations that would best be suited by this technique would be stressors where the consequences of not getting involved or not completing something are low. So examples might be declining the request to volunteer for some situation, or delegating someone else to handle a simple task at work that is a low priority. Try to think of one or two things in your life that you could withdraw from that would help take some stress off your shoulders. If the consequences aren't too great, then give yourself permission to say no. Keep in mind that delegating tasks to others can serve to empower them and make them feel they are needed. Of course, this depends on the task delegated, but being able to delegate really means being able to relinquish some control, and sometimes that is difficult for us. Acceptance comes into play with those stressors that you cannot alter or avoid. You just have to deal with them. This is not an easy assignment. In the Serenity Prayer that is used by many self-help groups, they express the need to accept the things they cannot change, the courage to change the things they can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is a great goal for people in Western culture and for people in law enforcement on many levels. But keep in mind that accepting something doesn't mean you stifle the thoughts you have about the situation. No, it means changing those thoughts. We must remember that our thoughts and feelings will often drive our behaviors, and so we must get a handle on both in our attempts to control our stress. Now, if you can accept the stress while building resiliency and changing your perception about the stressor, your success level will go up and your risk of illness will go down. Let's talk about building resilience first. Building resilience simply means increasing your ability to tolerate stress. We'll discuss how you can become more resilient physically, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. Remember, you need to put your oxygen mask on first in order to assist others in an air disaster. It is much the same in life. We need to take care of ourselves to be the strongest we can be so we can carry on in our lives the way we want to. Strong, confident, and with little stress as possible. Let's talk about how to put this resiliency into our lives. Building resilience means creating a solid base so when the strong winds of stress come, you will not sway. We want to make sure you are strong enough and well equipped to deal with whatever comes your way. Taking care of yourself physically is the first step. A strong and healthy body can do a lot to combat stress. Eating healthy, as we know, is an important component in maintaining overall health and makes us more resilient. We are bombarded with how important it is to exercise. Exercise can be as simple as putting on a pair of sneakers, opening your door, walking for 15 minutes in one direction, and turning around and walking back. Even that would make a difference to your overall health. But there are many ways to exercise. You simply need to find the one that is fun for you. We can be too busy with all the tasks of work and life that we don't take enough time to relax. However, by taking relaxation breaks, we are more able to cope with all those things on our to-do lists. All the points listed here are important parts of building your resilience from a physical standpoint. Take a look at bullet 5. Yes, you need to get the proper amount of sleep. Some of us think we can get away with less sleep and still function at full capacity, but that is just not so. It's also important to see our doctor for regular health screens to maintain good health rather than only going to see them when we are ill. Eating right, exercising, getting enough sleep, these are all important components of a strong body. Remember, alcohol and drugs are not good for reducing stress. They may help in the short term, but they cause long-term problems. If you feel well and know you are healthy, you will be better at accepting and coping with stress. Our mental strength is equally, if not more important than our physical well-being. A strong and healthy mind can do wonders and help us overcome many obstacles in life. We also have control over our attitudes and thoughts, which directly affect how we experience and respond to stress. So how can we strengthen ourselves mentally? First of all, we have to be good to ourselves and not put ourselves down. Some of us engage in negative talk which doesn't serve to build us up. That is why affirmations can be very powerful. Whether you're fully committed to their message or not, saying them to yourself can help build your self-esteem. And you also need to be able to laugh and to put yourself in situations with people where you know there'll be some laughter. Do things that are fun for you, whatever they might be. Laughing makes you healthy. You need to take time to relax and be good to yourself. See bullet number 4? Be assertive. You need to ask for what you need. Your loved ones and your coworkers cannot read your mind, so you must communicate your needs to them. We may not be able to do all these things every day, but the more often we do practice these techniques, the better able we will be to handle stress in our lives. For us humans, social connections are very important to our overall well-being. Our social connections greatly enhance our ability to deal with change and stressors in our lives. Studies have proven time and again that our relationships can be a great source of strength and comfort. And guess what? We need to invest in those relationships. So that includes your partner, your spouse, your friends, your children, your pets, even your community. This investment does take a little time and effort on your part, but having a diverse group of relationships versus one or two is a great way to deal with stress. And nurturing these relationships makes us feel better, as well as makes the other person feel loved and cared about. We certainly have a variety of methods of communication in this day and age, so take your pick and nurture those you care about. Building intimacy with others means being able to listen and be with one another at a deep level, not just idle chatter. Building intimacy takes time and effort, but it's well worth it. It not only adds to the richness of our lives, but also can be a pillar during troubled and stressful times. When we are building resilience, we also want to address our spiritual side. Meditation is something you can practice and participate in just about any time. When we are dealing with stress, we often forget to slow down and get centered. Quieting our mind and body can help us to regroup and see through the murkiness of a stressful situation. Emotions can make things a bit foggy for us. Calming ourselves can help bring a clearer perspective, and that can make a big difference in terms of how we choose to react. For those of you that believe in prayer and worship of a higher power, these can also be powerful tools to help us deal with stress. And having a faith that you believe in, no matter what it is, gives us hope, which helps to cope with life's stressors. Finally, we can build spiritual resilience in ourselves by our commitment to be true to ourselves and our beliefs. Living out the values that you deem to be most important for you helps to keep you strong and resilient. Let's look a little closer at how we keep things in perspective and maintain a hopeful outlook by changing our perceptions. This is the key to accepting, coping, and thriving through stress and crises. The more you are able to adapt a realistic positive attitude about a stressful situation and redefine it in a less stressful way, the better off you will be. You might not be able to control many of the stressors in your life, but you do have control over how you feel about a stressor and how you interpret and view it. These two factors will help determine how we cope with the stressor and therefore the way we experience the stress. So, if your job forces you to move away from your family, for example, perhaps you need to change your perspective to a more hopeful one. You will meet new friends. You'll learn to adapt to a different lifestyle. Maybe you will even have a nicer place to live. You need to find that silver lining to keep your perspective positive. We often feel heightened stress when our expectations are unrealistic or when we hold on to irrational beliefs like, I should succeed at everything I try. Think about what unrealistic expectations or irrational beliefs you have that might be increasing your stress. By building your self-esteem and focusing on having a realistic and positive attitude, we can redefine situations in ways that actually provoke less stress. Do you have any unrealistic expectations or irrational beliefs that are contributing to your stress level? Think about this and make a note to examine this further. These may very well be making things more difficult for you to deal with. So now you have a multi-decision-making tool that can always assist you with determining what is the best way to deal with a stressful situation. You can try to alter it, avoid it, or accept it. If you have to accept the stressor because you can't avoid it or alter it significantly, focus on strengthening your mental, physical, and spiritual resiliency while adopting a realistic and positive perspective on the situation. These are key steps to sailing through the rough waters of stressful times. Remember that stress is not optional, but stress management is. You need to build your resiliency now so you can handle things that come your way. Don't wait to work on stress management. Work on it daily. We will be faced with stressors every day. It's a natural part of being alive. However, the way we react to and cope with those stressors is up to us. We must decide for ourselves how to manage stress. When we take steps toward building a more stress-resilient lifestyle, we are better able to cope with the curveballs that might get thrown our way. I hope that through this portion of the training you've been able to reflect a bit about the stress in your own life and have learned at least one or two techniques you can implement to help you deal with stress in a healthier way.